Hi, welcome back to Real Podcast. And Erin,
And I'm Adama.
and today we're going to be talking about the steps to purchasing real estate.
Okay, so what a lot of people don't know is the steps to purchasing, and it is not any fault of your own. If you've never done it, you would never know. So we want to guide you through the various steps, starting with pre-approval.
Yeah. So the pre-approval process, it's nothing to be afraid of. A lot of persons come to me and they feel as if it's an intimidating process or it's going to take days or weeks to be pre-approved, which is not the case. So it's as simple as a phone call or an email to a loan officer. So you can either contact a bank, you can contact the credit unions, you can also contact insurance companies such as Colina and Family Guardian. They also provide mortgages. So those are your options for lenders for the properties. So you will just contact those companies and let them know that you're interested in being pre-qualified. Now, usually what they ask for is they would ask for a job letter and a recent pay stub. Those are like the two basic things that you're going to need. So you can get a generic letter made up from your company, and then you can just distribute them throughout the different companies so they can give you an idea of what you can pre-qualify for.
When you say pre-qualify, we use that term so frequently. And do you think everybody is aware of what that phrase really means? Like, what does it mean, pre-qualified?
Yeah. So
Pre-approved.
pre-qualified or being pre-approved for a mortgage does not guarantee that you're going to get the mortgage.
Right.
It just gives you an idea of the amount of money that you might be able to get from the bank. So
Your buying power,
exactly,
pretty much.
yeah. So it could range from anywhere from 100,000, 203 and up. So it really doesn't matter. It could be more, it could be less. So it's so important that you have this number so you can know exactly what you're shopping for and what you can afford. So let's say you see a property in the east and you fell in love with this property, but then when it's time to purchase, you realize that it's way outside of your budget. So to prevent all of that heartache and disappointment, you want to make sure know what your numbers are, because you're going to also need to come up with a deposit for your loan. So depending on whichever institution you're using, they may finance you at 95%, 100%, 80%, 70%. The numbers could vary. So you need to know what your deposit is going to be. Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Or is it 30%? So the numbers can go up and they can go down. So you want to make sure get pre-approved so you can know how to plan. And then knowing that number is very important too, because you're going to also have to consider that you're going to need legal fees. So the first step is knowing what you're going to pre-qualify for, to pay for your deposit, as well as to give you an idea of what your legal fees are going to be. And it's usually industry standard about 2.5% of the purchase price. Now, depending on the attorney you use, it could be more or it could be less.
Okay, and so we now have that figure in mind. The bank has given you this letter stating you have been pre-approved for, let's say, 100,000. Then you now take that pre-approval letter and you sit down with the agent that you have chosen and you start your consultation. So what does a consultation appointment look like?
Okay, so a consultation appointment can look different for different agents
people,
and different clients. So for me, a basic consultation, like Adama said, I want to see your pre-approval letter so I can know what it is that you qualify for. Then I'm going to sit down with you and we'll go through a checklist of items. What is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for an investment property? Are you looking for a homestead? Are you looking for multifamily, single family? Is this an investment for you? Is this going to be a first time purchase, a second purchase? Are you starting an investment portfolio of real estate properties? So I get an idea of what direction you're trying to go in, and then I can then begin to put together a list of options for you. And during the consultation, I can usually then pull up on my computer or my laptop different property options just to get the conversation and the ball going with that. And then through the conversation, I like to pull out little key things that you're going to say to me. You're going to talk about what you love, what you don't love, likes, dislikes, wants versus needs. And the wants versus needs conversation is super important. Just because you want something doesn't necessarily mean that you need it.
Or can afford it.
Yeah, and then most of the time the wants that we want, you don't necessarily need. Like a lot of persons may say, oh, I want this beautiful condo on the beach. Yeah, you may want it, but then when you look at your budget, like Adama said, you may not be able to afford it, because then you got to think about HOA fees, insurances, and all of these other things. So in the consultation, we unpack all of these things and have a big conversation as to realistically what you can afford and your lifestyle, because purchasing a property, it's the expenses does not come, they don't stop.
They don't end, at
when
the
you get that
purchase.
mortgage, because you still got your day-to-day expenses and then the upkeep of this property.
Right. And something I want to go back to with the bankers, do not go into the, so when you go into the bank to get pre-qualified, they're going to ask you for various documents. It's so important not to hide any debt.
Please don't lie.
It's so important to not make any large purchases after you've also gotten that pre-approval letter. So if you know that you're trying to purchase a home, purchase a lot, don't go buy a car. Don't get those free credit cards that the bank offering out and max those out, because all of that cuts down on your pre-approval amount. Don't go to
Don't take out those
Furniture
vacation
Plus,
loans.
no vacation don't do any of that. Freeze your spending until you have actually acquired what it is that you're trying to get. And again, do not lie to your banker. Your banker can find out all the information. We now have the what is it called?
We run the credit
credit
reports.
reports, and so therefore there is no way for you to say, like back in the day, you could not tell Commonwealth Bank that you have something over here, but nowadays we can't do that. You know, we're becoming real official here, so you have to be above board and tell your banker in order to make sure that you have the proper approval amount. And again, like I said, no spending until you've obtained the property that you're trying to get.
Exactly, because a lot of people may not realize it, but like, let's say if this year you were pre-approved for $200,000 and you got a raise the following year, you may think that it's not a big deal, but $50,000 or even a $20,000 increase in your pre-approval amount can make a huge difference in the property options that are available nowadays.
Yeah. And then about the consultation, I think again it's a good thing to sit down and talk about it, because a lot of times we have these grand ideas of what we want to have, and then the reality is you have champagne taste, but you got to pay a budget, and so therefore you have to be realistic, and it's good to sit down and see, okay, this is what I can get at this price point in this market.
Yeah, and then also to not to discourage anyone, you may think that the amount that you've been pre-approved for is too small. You'll be surprised of how you can invest your money. In the Bahamas, we have 700 islands, rocks, and keys. Nassau is just one island,
small spot,
so there's so many other islands. If you're looking to invest and create a real estate portfolio, there's so many other islands that do very well with real estate. I mean, you could just easily branch out. What you like in Nassau, it's going to be kind of difficult to find a really nice piece of property for $50,000, but you can go to any other island and you can find a piece of lot for $50,000. You can put up a nice little cottage or some type of investment property on it, and you can make thousands of dollars, and then you could even flip it, and from what would cost you maybe like $100,000 to build, you could, at the end of the day, that could be about maybe $400,000 to $500,000 in value. So you gotta, with the consultation, we show you all of these other options, so you're not just feeling like, oh my God, this is an impossible feat for me to do anything here in this one island. And this could be the same for someone who may be on an out island. They may think, oh, well, I can't get anything on this island, but we can show you the different options. The Bahamas is huge. The possibilities are endless. And as Bahamians, we need to start investing in our own country.
Diversifying, so the next step, so you've gotten your pre-approval letter, you've done your consultation with your agent, and now it's to choose an attorney. If you don't have an attorney, typically your agent is able to recommend a list of attorneys that they work closely with, that they trust, that they know is going to actually do the job that needs to be done. I know I have a list that I send to my clients that I recommend, and I guess speak to the importance of choosing an agent. You did say that, you gave an idea that it's roughly 2.5% is industry standard, 2.5% of the purchase amount that you're going to purchase. So that's the standard, industry standard. But anything else you wanted to
Yes,
speak
so
on it?
it's very important at the beginning of the process to choose your attorney, because as soon as you decide, hey, you identified
found
the
the
property,
property, yeah.
and you put in your offer, everything goes pretty quickly. Because as soon as you put in that offer, you have to automatically make your deposit within a few days. It could be between 7 to 14 days with your attorney, and then they will almost immediately receive a sales agreement. And so that's how quickly the process is. So if you decide to wait last minute to choose an attorney, you may end up choosing the wrong attorney. I've seen too many cases of clients just randomly Googling names, and they don't do their research of the client, and then you end up losing your property because your client is not following up with the other attorney, and then you can also be at risk of losing your deposit. And that's something we'll explain in more detail when an attorney comes in to sit with us. But your attorney is going to help you out with your transaction. And like hiring a real estate agent, you want to make sure hire the right attorney, someone that's actually going to respond to your calls, respond to your emails,
Who's not in court.
Exactly, who's not tied up in court, who's going to be transparent and honest with you. You always want to ask them, hey, can you take on this case? There are some attorneys that's not going to do certain transactions because of the value. So make sure, speak with the attorney, interview the attorney. It's okay to call and interview with these people. If they don't want to sit and interview with you, then that might not be the attorney for you.
Yeah. And I think just like agents, every attorney is not created equal.
Yep.
So I personally, I like an attorney that is easily accessible. I can send you an email. I can send you a message. Some of them would even give you their cell phone numbers. It all depends, but I like an accessible attorney that's very detailed, but also moves quickly, because I've had a cash transaction that took a year to close.
Same.
1 year because of an attorney. And so that is very discouraging in the whole purchasing process, especially if you're a first-time homeowner and the attorney is dragging their feet. You can't get a hold of them, or the seller's attorney can't get a hold of them. So it's so important to make sure that you hire the correct attorney. And like Erin said, we're going to try to get an attorney on to do an interview, just to ask all the questions that we think that our clients would want to know the answers to.
Yeah, so like the whole buy-in process in real estate, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just follow the advice of your agent. If they give you recommendations for attorneys, I would suggest taking them, and you still have to do your due diligence and still follow up with those attorneys, and see what type of work they do, what's their process like, find out how they handle their fees, what their fees are like. And like we said, even though the industry standard is 2.5%, some may charge you more or some may charge you less. Some may work with you, some may be like, I am working with you, just keep it moving. So it's very important to interview these people. One
more thing, the bank that you choose has an attorney list. They have an attorney list and they have an appraiser list. So on the attorney list would be the approved attorneys that the bank will use. So don't go and hire an attorney that's not on the list, because you can't use them. So then you'll be starting over at square one. And then another thing, the appraiser as well. Don't go ahead and get an appraisal, and the appraiser, you already have your document, you paid your $400 or $500 for this appraisal, and the appraiser is not on the list.
Yeah, so like Adama had mentioned before, try to get recommendations from your real estate agent, because we usually do have a list of all of the approved attorneys and appraisers. So we cut out all that long research and work that you guys have to do, and we generally recommend someone that's already on the bank's list, because it'll be counterproductive for us to say, hey, I'm going to give you Adama, knowing that Adama is not on Commonwealth or Scotiabank's list. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the reason why they're on the list, on the various financial institution list, is to just ensure, again, that we are using professionals. We're using people that are great at what they do and that are trusted.
Correct.
So our next step would be, so we've gotten pre-approved, we've done the consultation, we've hired our attorney, and now the deposit is in, the sales agreement is signed, you're at the bank, you need an appraisal.
Yes. So the appraisal usually comes as a big surprise for everyone. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know I needed to have this done. Yes, if you're financing, 10 chances out of 10, the bank is going to ask you for an appraisal. Okay, so now Adama's a licensed appraiser, so she can go into more detail as to that whole process of hiring an appraiser and what that entails.
Right. So again, make sure that your appraiser is on the bank's list. Once you select an appraiser, they typically need, if it's a developed property, they need access to the property. So you have to ensure that you can arrange with your agent and the appraiser so that they can connect and they can get access to the property, because they have to go in and do the inspection. Most appraisers require a 50% deposit down. You give them that deposit. 5 to 7 business days typically. Now it's taking a bit longer, but 5 to 7 business days typically. And then you have your report and you submit that to the bank. I think that's it for appraiser. I don't think that there's anything. Is there anything that you think?
Well, sometimes depending on the property that you have, the bank may ask you to do an inspection, which is different from an appraisal. So an appraisal will just give you more of the value of the property, and an inspection will just go in to point out if there's any flaws with the property, if there's
structurally it's sound.
Exactly. Yeah. Any structure that needs to be what's the word now? Like Adam said, it needs to be structurally sound. So all of this, your bank is going to tell you they may require it, they may not require it. And then also too, it's a personal choice for you too. If you feel as if you need to get an inspection done on the building so you can have better buying power or negotiation.
Peace of mind too sometimes.
That's a great option for you to do, and that's something else that your agent can advise you on. Usually a newly built property, you may not need it, but it depends on like the location of the property, the surrounding environment. So many different factors involved in it, and this is why it's important to have a real estate agent so they can advise you on these things.
I get this question a lot. What's the difference between an appraiser and a surveyor? They're like, oh, the bank says I need a surveyor. Could you do that for me, please? And I'm like, no, I'm an appraiser. I can only do appraisals, but there is a surveyor.
Yeah, so basically a surveyor is going to determine the boundaries for your property. So it's going to tell you where your property begins and where it ends, because you don't want to go and purchase a property and you're thinking you have 10,000 square feet, and then in reality you go and you build this huge house on this property, and then your neighbor comes and is like, hi,
you're on my
sorry,
boundary.
You on my boundary. I need to chop off half of your house.
Yeah.
So it's important to have
it's
it.
happened before.
And then too, if you're buying a property or vacant land, it's very important that you request that those boundary markers are in place so you can know what you're purchasing, because it doesn't make sense. It's in particular with a vacant lot. You say, oh, I want that lot, and you thinking it's this huge, massive acreage, when in reality it could be a quarter of an acre, half of an acre, or not even 10,000 square feet,
Yeah.
So that's really important to have.
And I think that's one of the things, the importance of also the attorney, because the attorney ensures that before the sale closes, that those boundary markers are in place. If it's a rectangular, the 4 points are in place so that you're aware of exactly what your boundary markers are. Yeah. So surveyor and appraiser, 2 different people.
Yes.
Insurance. There's both life and home insurance that I think a lot of people are unaware that they need, especially when you're getting a mortgage.
Yes, so the reason you're going to get the life insurance, especially if you are taking out a mortgage, the bank needs to know that if Erin buys a house for $200,000, and after 2 years of me paying this mortgage, I suddenly drop dead.
God forbid.
God forbid. The bank is going to ask.
Yeah.
So who paying for the rest of this?
Yeah, where I get my money from.
So the life insurance policy, it's good security to know that, hey, in the event that something happens to me, this is going to cover this expense. So your family doesn't have to come out of pocket to try to figure out, oh my God, how are we going to pay for this house? And you don't get put out of this house because they do have a right to take that house from you. So you want that security. So it's very important you get that. And then it's also important to get the insurance on your house itself to protect yourself. We live in the tropics. We're a hurricane. We're in an environment where we're prone to high hurricanes, any type of natural disaster. So you don't want hurricane season to come, your roof blow off, or your yard get flooded, your house get flooded, and then it's inhabitable and you don't have no money to pay for it. So your insurance helps to cover those costs for you, and it gives you protection and peace of mind at night.
Yeah, an example of that is Dorian. Like a lot
Yep.
of homeowners did not have home insurance, and partially because I think a lot of them built cash, like built
Yep.
out of pocket, and so they therefore didn't even see the need to have home insurance. But that was a clear example of the importance of home insurance. And I want to go back to the life insurance. I think people are unaware as well that if husband and wife are purchasing, both of you have to have insurance to the value of the house. So if your house is 200,000, the insurance that you're taking out, hubby has to have 200,000 insurance, and wife has to have 200,000 insurance, because they need to make sure if either one, because that means, God forbid, somebody passes away, his salary is no longer available, it's at risk. So that is, both people need to have that insurance of an equal amount of the value of the property.
Yeah, and so this is why it's so important. Again, we're going to keep circling back to hiring a real estate agent and having a consultation, because it's not just getting a mortgage and that's it. You know, you have all of these other expenses that you have to think about, and you have to factor that in. So if you're pre-qualified for a certain amount, you need to make sure that you can also supplement anything else, your insurances, your day-to-day life, and all of your other personal expenses. But you definitely want to protect your investment. Have your life insurance to give you backup for in the event something happens. Your home and your property is secured for your family in the future. And if there's any damage, natural disaster, anything to your home, you have security in that you don't have to come out of pocket, you know. So it's safety and it's protection for everyone involved.
Right. So now we've gone through all of this. We've gotten pre-approved. We've done the consultation, attorney, appraiser, surveyor, inspector, all that good stuff. Your loan is approved. The title search has been done. So your loan gets approved, and then your attorney does the title search to make sure that, you know, the name on the property is good, and transfers the title over to
and
you.
it's yours.
Right. And then once that is done and all is well and clear, your bank sends the proceeds over to the attorney, who sends it to the seller's attorney, and now we're at the closing table.
Yeah.
Right? So what does the closing process look like? It's different for a vacant land compared to like a home. A vacant land, you know, you're good to go. You get your documents and it's yours. You can start building, or you can start doing whatever you want to do. But like, what's the closing process for like a home or a condo?
It's pretty simple. The experience that I had when I purchased my condo, it was pretty straightforward. Title's clear, everything. They got the conveyance and everything. Now, I purchased a condo, so I had to go through a separate step where I had to do an application to be approved to purchase within the building that I bought in. So that went through the sale process. But once everything was approved, you know, you get all your documents from the HOA, you get onboarded into the community to let them know that, hey, we have a new member of the building. They give you a breakdown of all your fees officially. I mean, you do get this prior, but they do give you a package with all of that. But it's pretty simple. You get your keys. I got my inventory list, and that's basically it.
Yeah,
so
let's talk about that.
Nothing too crazy and complicated for a closing.
Yeah, the inventory list. So from the agent perspective, when do you get this inventory list? I typically walk through with my clients at the end of it, just to make sure, because you get that inventory list typically if it's sold with shadows, with items in it. You would get that at the beginning. So you just want to make sure at the closing point, everything that was on that list is still in the home, right?
Yeah. So like Adama said, so you would get that inventory list prior to closing the sale, and then once it's closed, we then go back into the property. You do a checklist to make sure everything's there, and if something isn't there, then you would go back to your attorney and be like, hey, the lamp that was supposed to be here ain't here. Where's my lamp?
Yeah.
And so if that lamp isn't there, they need to reimburse you or somehow find a way to get that lamp back in your possession. Because I mean, technically, that is a part of your purchase price. But usually in cases like that, it's a very rare instance you see something like that happen.
Yeah. Yes, but once inventory list is good and everything is there, you get your keys and you move into your beautiful new home, right? So all of those steps, I think is what is a part of the purchase process.
Yes.
If you have any questions, like we said, we want to get an attorney to come on and answer those questions for you. We also want to try to get an insurance agent to come in. And if there's any questions that you have about the process, please send in your questions. We're going to try to do an episode with those questions, answering your questions for you.
Yeah, so like Adama said, please feel free to message us with any of your questions, comments, concerns, and we'll be happy to assist you with those.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.